Here, our attorney, Keith Corbett.
Present. Thank you, Patty.
Okay, secretary report regarding the notice of the meeting.
The meeting was noticed as required with the assistance of our city clerk, Dave Frazier, with 72 hours notice.
Okay. With all your approval, I'd like to, in order to streamline this, I'd like to be able to call the various agenda items and have discussion on them, if any. Once the discussion is done, rather than a roll call, I'll ask for passage without objection. If you do have an objection, obviously you raise it at that time. So let's take the first agenda item, approval of the minutes of the December 21st, 2017 meeting and the October 19th, 2018 meeting. Is there any discussion on this matter? Having not heard any discussion, we will approve the minutes of those two meetings without objection. Let's move on to review on the review of the 2020, 2021, and 22 budgets. Is there any discussion on this item?
These were created because you'll find with other items on our agenda, we are under the Public Authorities Law of New York State, which requires us to submit through their Paris process. It's an uploaded form, certain information, which includes anticipated budgets. So I prepared these budgets in a general sense and included funds in this year anticipation of needing legal assistance regarding item number 9, possibly. And for the prior 2 years, we did not have any meetings, so I reduced the amounts of anticipated budgets. We do, however, have to have an audit every year, which is the next item on the agenda.
Okay. Anybody have any discussion on this item? There being no response, we shall now, without objection, approve the 2020, 2021, and 2022 budgets. We'll move on to the next is the review of the 2018, 2019, and 2020 audits. Patty, do you want to speak to that?
Sure. Every year, as I said, we're required to do an audit, and the 18 audit hadn't been reviewed since we had no meetings in 19. We also have the 2019 audit and the 2020. We have our auditor, Heather, who is available if anyone has any technical questions on the audit. She'd be happy to join us. And she also said to let you know she's working currently on the 2021 audit. She works for the Bondillo Group, which is also the city's auditors. So it's done as part of an overall process, even though, of course, we are a separate entity. But she does the audits for us.
Okay. Any discussion on this item? There being no response, we approve the 2018, 2019, and 2020 budgets without objection. Next agenda item is the acceptance of $5,000 PSEG grant in 2021 and the transfer of funds to the city of Long Beach for the purpose of economic and community development. Patty, you want to speak to that?
Yes, as some of you who have been on the, and I'm sorry, I introduced at the beginning, but not officially. We have a new member on the LBC board, Jim Kirkland, as the vice president, and welcome Jim to the board because we had last year a resignation by Dr. Greg Freed. The PSEG Long Island Foundation, which is a nonprofit, has from time to time provided funding, and we have applied successfully and gotten small grants. So last year, at the end of the year, we were told that we could apply, which we did. And we received $5,000. We turned this over to the city as we always do, and they will have expended it on assistance to families and providing economic development training. They provide training through our Magnolia Center. They have a whole new setup on the second floor with computers and advisors to help train people that need jobs.
Okay, great. Any discussion on this item? Without response, we approve the acceptance of the $5,000 PSEG grant in 2021 without objection. The next agenda item is to review and approve the LDC investment policy. Patty, would you like to speak to that?
Sure. This is a requirement from, again, the state that at the first meeting of the year, and this is our first meeting of the year, that the LDC approves their investment policy. Currently, we do not have any investments, but we need to have a approved policy. This is the same policy that was created in 2013 and has never been changed. So it's been found acceptable.
Thank you. Any discussion on this item? There being no response, we approve the LDC investment policy without objection. Next agenda item is the resolution recommendation to the Long Beach Local Development Corporation sole member, the city manager, Donna M. Gaydon, and the Long Beach City Council that the Long Beach Local Development Corporation be dissolved and request that the necessary steps be started to make this happen. Patty?
If anyone had a chance to review the minutes from prior years or have the recollection, one of the items that was discussed back in 2017 and 2018 was a recommendation for members of the LDC board to make this recommendation to the city manager, who is the sole member under the corporation bylaws. And at that time, we were advised, and Mr. Corbett Keith may want to talk to this, because there was litigation with iStar, both by the city and the LDC, that we held up. That litigation, I have been told, has been resolved, and that we're free to move forward on taking this action if you so desire to do so.
Yeah. And Patty, listen, if the board decides to do so, my firm can put together the proper paperwork. It's filed with the Secretary of State, obviously gets filed with Paris and all the different reporting agencies, and then it will be completely dissolved as if it never existed. Just one thing I would caution the board, you know, an LDC is a tool. It's an economic development tool that can be very advantageous. Unfortunately, the city's really never used this board or this tool to the extent that it's used elsewhere. As we've spoken about many times, you don't do pilots, but you can do mortgage tax exemptions, sales tax exemptions. I mean, it's a tool that's used in a lot of economic development throughout the state. Matter of fact, if anyone's hearing all the governors yelling at each other and Buffalo Billion and Buffalo Stadium, it's an LDC that some of that money's going through. So it's an old tool that's been around since the 30s. It predates these IDAs. It is valuable in that what it could provide. So just know, and we'll do whatever the board decides. Once you dissolve it, that tool is no longer going to be available again. It's not like, you know, once you'd have to start all over again. Who knows what the case law or the statutes are then now? Because right now there's not as many LDCs being started. So I know it's losing money because the city has chose not to really use this tool. To my chagrin, we always expected it would be used because it's the perfect vehicle for it, especially in Long Beach. But, you know, in other places where they lie dormant, a lot of times they'll wrap in the audits with the municipal audits, which you've done here. A lot of times, if you're not having any activity, you can reduce the cost of those audits dramatically. I know right now, I think you're spending like $9,000 a year every year to do an audit. You know, so I get the expense side of it. But again, I mean, I understand it has not been utilized anywhere. We haven't been utilized. I think we all know that. I mean, Scott's been the chair a long time. I would just caution that once you do dissolve completely, you may not have the opportunity to use this type of tool in the future again. So I wouldn't be doing my job. I didn't say that. Again, I understand the city's desire. We can put together the proper paperwork and the certifications that will be signed by the chair, that will ultimately be signed by the city manager. We can have the resolutions drafted. We can file everything. It's just like a not-for-profit corporation, which is really how you were incorporated. It's a dissolution, and we can dissolve it, you know, carte blanche, and away we go. So I understand everyone's desire. I just wanted to caution that, you know, it is a tool that the city has chose not to use, but it's a tool that will not be in your tool bag anymore going forward. As I know we've discussed many times, I see Stu on there as well, and I see Alfonso. They've been around a while. And nice to meet you, Mr. Kirkin and Mr. Schieber. But I did want to just, you know, lay that out. But if the will is to go the way the city manager wants to go, I understand we can put the resolutions together. I'll get documents ready for Scott and for the city manager to sign. Obviously, ultimately, there'll have to be another meeting, Patty, whereby we actually implement the dissolution. And, we can move forward in that direction.
So Keith, this is merely a recommendation from the board. If the city wants to maintain the entity and the facility itself, it could choose to do so or not, correct?
The way I understand it, they're asking for the board's recommendation to dissolve. I believe the city wants it dissolved. I'm not, let Patty speak to that. But once the board kind of has to make the recommendation.
Right,
The city
right.
can't do it on its own. So I think it's one of those chicken and egg questions. So, I mean, I think they're asking you to recommend it so that the city can dissolve it. And you can't start the process without the recommendation. And
Correct.
obviously, the board's recommending it. And listen, I get why, and I understand.
No,
It's just, we have to do the recommendation so that then the sole member, which is the city, you're the board, you're independent and a separate agency. The sole member, though, is the city through the not-for-profit law. Then they would have to fill out the paperwork. You as chair would fill out the paperwork, come back to a meeting, authorize it, and then we file.
But my question is, our recommendation is simply that if they decide to maintain the entity even after we recommend it, that it be dissolved, they could conceivably do so, couldn't they?
Absolutely. And then they would have to see if, your members are recommending dissolution. They'd have to see if you gentlemen want to stay on the board.
Right. Correct.
You know what I mean?
Correct. So the option for them is still there.
It will solely come down to the city accepting your recommendation or not.
Correct. Okay. Any further discussion on this item?
Now, I just would add, and I totally agree with what Keith just talked about, and that is we're not sure exactly how the city manager and or the city council feels about this at this point, because our city manager and city council are very much supportive of economic development, which is why we're doing the comprehensive plan update and other projects. So therefore, this will be presented to them. And I think, as Keith said, that some people on this board in the past have felt that it's time to move forward and to, dissolve it. And if people still feel that way and the city council and or city manager feels that the LDC should continue, then new people can be appointed to the board.
Correct.
I'm just really reiterating what Keith said in different wording, but I think it's still, we're not sure, but you should take the action that you feel comfortable taking. And I see that Nat Cooper just joined us.
Yep.
So now we're 5 for 5.
Nat, welcome. I don't know how much of that discussion you just heard. Do you have any questions on the resolution recommending the dissolution of the LDC Corporation? Nat?
Nat, I'll resend you the link because he emailed us that he does not have the link from yesterday or earlier today. So I'll send it again.
Well, he's here, but all right.
Yeah, but maybe he can't. He may have joined us as a viewer rather than a participant.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Oh, he's up on the panel. He has full ability to
Oh,
participate.
Nat, maybe your audio might be off. No.
he's texting. Can you hear me? I think he's having technical difficulty.
Yeah, I just said we don't hear you, Nat.
no. You want to try joining again, Nat? Maybe the connection wasn't good.
Okay, let's give him a couple of minutes.
So all the things of technology that, I should, while we're waiting, and I'm sorry I didn't do this earlier, introduce Jordan Schieber. Jordan joined us recently as our part-time planner, assistant planner, and he's helping with planning and the LDC and grants, going to graduate school at Hunter for planning. And he's here to help us make sure that our meeting minutes are written up correctly. So thank
Hey,
you.
George.
Nat, are you with us?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
There we
We can
go.
hear you now.
Yeah, we can see
There you
you.
go.
Okay,
Welcome, welcome.
success.
Nat, we're at the point where we're discussing the recommendation to dissolve the LDC.
Yep, so I saw the documentation. Thank you for sending that in advance. It was greatly helpful. No questions, Scott, to answer the question you asked when I was on last time.
Okay, so.
Can I ask a question? From what I understand, and I haven't had a lot of time to look through everything, the only cost to the city is actually the audit cost.
And
So
legal
is
costs.
there a way to sort of suspend operations without dissolution?
Yes.
No,
So that
no.
so there's nothing to audit.
Well, no,
You
no,
have
no,
to
no.
do an audit. Oh, go
You
ahead.
have to do
Patty.
regardless.
You can suspend operations so that you don't completely throw the baby out with the bathwater and have it. You would still have to do an audit. The audit would not be as extensive as the audit that's currently being done now. They'd have to go through the same checklist, but there'd be no activity. And your legal cost, listen, I wish you guys would do an activity and then I'd be able to make money or de minimis. I mean, we haven't had a meeting in 3 years. You haven't seen a bill from me in like 3 years.
Right.
I think the cost you have is $9,000 some odd a year for an auditor. And you know, I don't want to speak to whether that's, you know, a proper cost or not, but other LDCs, sometimes they go up and down, they flow. You have a lot of economic activity happening. They fund themselves and they kind of lie dormant a bit and then they use them again. It's not like something that's always on, like an IDA. So a lot of times they wrap it in with the city and they try to reduce the cost for the times when it's not on. The problem here is this board has never got to a point where we're doing any activity. And it is where we are, but there is a way to suspend, not fully dissolve, provided, you know, the city, you know, works with the auditor to make, you know, reduce those costs, but you can suspend, not dissolve, but you would still have to file an audit every year. That would basically be a no activity report. No money came in, no money went out. It gets filed every year, checks the boxes showing that there's been no activity.
And which, Jim, I would also add is an option that the city still has regardless of what we do today.
Correct.
Good. I'm just thinking in regards to the fact that we're really progressing with the comprehensive plan.
Right.
And if there's going to be some, you know, future development, we may have a purpose for this.
Mhm.
The other thing is, even though Keith makes it sound very simple to suspend, to do the audit, there's paperwork that has to be done internally on the city side, as well as what we should have done. And now I have to update the Paris reports for the last 3 years. And that takes, each of those takes at least a couple hours, if not a day or two themselves. There's a lot of questions. It's like we're a large IDA or the MTA in terms of the array of questions that you have to answer. So there is, you know, staff time involved, but we as a staff are supportive of whatever decision you wish to make. I'm not suggesting we go either direction. The other thing I will point out, just not to forget, is that when right after the LDC was created, well, actually during the period the LDC was being considered and created, we had Superstorm Sandy because the LDC was first, resolution was passed in 2012. We didn't start meeting till 2013, right before I was hired. Therefore, at that time, we were a conduit. The LDC was a conduit for special funds from the state and from a certain number of banks. So we brought in about $250,000 at that time, which was one of the reasons that it gave us some motive to keep going, because we were a conduit to bring in needed funds for the city. However, those funds have basically dried up except for PSEG. And that's only, you know, on a temporary basis. It's not anything consistent. So I don't anticipate seeing any funds coming into the LDC, except, as Keith said, if we do a deal. And then we would get some kind of funding, some payment.
Any further discussion on this item? So not hearing any discussion, the board would recommend that to make the recommendation to the Long Beach Local Development Corporation sole member, the city manager, Donna M. Gaydon, and the Long Beach City Council, that the Long Beach Local Development Corporation be dissolved, and request that the necessary steps be started to make this happen, passes without objection. I'll defer to you on the next item, Patty. I guess there are no summary of operations. Since we're
right. I've you know, we've introduced Jim, we've introduced Jordan, and the only other thing I should have mentioned, I guess, under the budget is our account, our financial account with Capital One has about $400 in it right now.
okay.
So we don't have any exciting balance, but we're not in a negative position. We have $400.
Okay, anybody on old business? No, anyone on new business? Nothing being heard. I'll entertain a motion for an adjournment, but before I do, I'd like to thank for his excellent legal work throughout this period, and his guidance, and for just being there for the LDC and the people of the city of Long Beach, Keith Corbett, for his amazing job in helping us out over this period of time. And
Thank
I'd
you, sir.
also, you're welcome, Keith. My pleasure to say something. And Patty Bourne has always been the solid base of this LDC, and has kept us informed in such a great way and a great manner over the period of time, and has also provided significant guidance for the LDC. And on behalf of the people of the city of Long Beach, I'd like to thank you both for your service.
Thank you so much.
I'd like to entertain a motion for an adjournment of this meeting. Any of the members? I see Stu has made the motion. Anybody second?
Second.
Nat Cooper seconds. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone objecting? And no objections. The meeting is therefore adjourned.
It was good to see everyone. Be safe,
Yes,
Thank you
everyone.
so much. Thank you
Enjoy.
all for coming on.
Enjoy the summer.
Very good, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.